Okay, this is an explanation of how to set up and solve a proportion. I'm going to use the example that is often used with ratios and proportions in baking. Here's a chocolate chip cookie recipe, and there are other ways of solving proportional questions, but I am going to recommend, and in this assignment, insist that you use a proportion and solve it by cross multiplication. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate so that you can see how to do it. So here is my question. I want to make as many cookies as possible. I have 25 eggs and plenty of everything else, so I'm just saying that don't worry about how much baking soda, salt, and butter and all that stuff for the purposes of this problem, but I do want to know how much flour I should buy. So whenever you solve these problems, you start by setting up a proportion, and a proportion is two equal ratios. So I have one ratio equaling another ratio. Notice how what I did before I did anything, I haven't put any numbers, I haven't put any words. I know I'm going to have two equal ratios. And then the next step is to set up one of the ratios in which you know both the top and the bottom. So in this case, I'm talking about flour and eggs. And so I'm going to have an eggs to flour ratio. Now once again, look, I put words before numbers. I think if you understand what words are going where, then the numbers can follow. If you just start throwing numbers in there, you can sometimes get it wrong. And if I have an eggs to flour ratio, I know that as I make a bigger recipe, everything will grow proportionally, so that the ratio of eggs to flour will always be proportional. I'm just going to need more of each. And so what that tells me is I'm going to need a second ratio that's also eggs to flour. Once again, no numbers here, I'm just conceptually setting up the problem. Now the ratio in which I know both parts. I know that from my recipe up above, I have 2 eggs needed to 2 1/4 cups of flour, which I'm going to write as a decimal. So 2 eggs goes there, and 2.25 cups of flour. All right, so then the question is, how much flour? When you see the how much and the label, that is your X. So X goes right here for cups of flour. And then I know that in this case I'm going to proportionally increase my recipe so that it's going to use 25 eggs. Okay, so that's step one. Step one is setting up the proportion, and I showed you how to do it by letting the labels or units guide you. Next, you're going to show the steps of cross multiplication. Now, you don't have to draw these butterfly wings, but it helps to demonstrate. So the cross multiplication is going to, and I'm going to move it up to here, lead to 2x equals 25 times 2.25. Now, you don't have to do 25 times 2.25 with log multiplication on paper, but you do have to show the work that I'm showing. So write down what you're going to punch in your calculator, and then here I am with my calculator, and I get 25 times 2.25 is 56.25. 2x equals, divide both sides by 2 to get x by itself. Now on my calculator, I'm going to divide by 2, and I get 28.125. I happen to know that 0.125 is an eighth, so that's 28 1/8 cups of flour. Okay, when you do your demonstration of how to solve, you're going to set it up and solve it exactly the way I showed you. If it's different, then you aren't doing it correctly for the purposes of this assignment.